Okay, welcome back. We're going to do Back to the Future on the NES, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to immediately start and pause so that I can do my usual introduction without that horribly obnoxious music loop playing all the way through about 40 times. So my pal Rockin Kats, he's finally back on YouTube. He's been making a few cool vids. Highly recommended. I'll pin a link to one in the description, one of his recent ones. Got in touch with him. He's married. He finished school. He, got all his priorities in life taken care of. So now he's back to doing some content here and there. Like me, it's just a hobby channel, just for fun. And when you have things happening in your life, you can't play games and record all the time. So, life comes first, then hobbies. Anyway, I was chatting with him, and he said he wanted me to do an NES game because I've done nothing but 360 games for a long time. So I fired up the old Kevtris HDMI, which, by the way, has skyrocketed in value since I bought it during the pandemic. I bought it, I think, in 2020 for $300. I think it's well over 1,000 now. These things are highly sought after. But I said, well, gee, what game should I do? And I suggested maybe Back to the Future. And this is a game that I have a fairly fond memory of. I remember picking it up. My original memory of Back to the Future is didn't play it during the heyday of the NES, although I'd seen the movies several times. We had a couple of them on videotape. So watched them a couple times every summer. And of course, went on the ride at Universal Studios, loved it. But I got as a stocking stuffer for Christmas. I've talked about this before. I think in my Friday the 13th video, I talked about getting a book by Jeff Rovin, How to Win at Nintendo Games Volume 2, the one with the yellow cover. And he talks about Friday the 13th, how to play it. Kind of. He got some of the mechanics wrong. I remember Super Dodgeball was discussed. Snake Rattle and Roll, I think, is also talked about. But at the end of the book, he has kind of a like very short, quick reviews about a number of games, and one of them was Back to the Future, and he said, "Stay away from this game. It's like Paperboy, but without the fun." He's kind of right, kind of wrong. It is somewhat similar to Paperboy. I think it's a little bit better than Paperboy, to be honest. At least the main part of the game is. And then what he forgot to mention is the other part of the game is like Tapper, but without the fun. And that part, I agree with. I think when you have to throw the milkshakes, that part, it's just not as good as Tapper. With Tapper, you can see who you're actually throwing it, and you can't really. It's hard to get an idea. It's easy to lose to not be able to tell definitively who you're throwing the milkshakes at the diner mini game. But anyway, so I do think this is a pretty decent game. But my real story with this game, picked it up probably in the late '90s when I was going through my retro gaming collecting phase. We had a mom and pop used game store in my neighborhood, and around 1990, I want to say late 1996, early 1997, I think everybody was selling off all their NES, SNES, Sega Genesis games to get, N64 games and, store credit for N64 games or PS1 games. And lucky me, I didn't really care much for PS1 or N64, only a handful of good games over those two consoles. But I loved the NES, SNES, Sega Genesis, and it was like being a kid in a candy store, seeing they would have a crate full of old NES games, not the AAA titles like, the Mega Mans or the Castlevanias, the games that everyone would pay a little bit more for, but all the other games like Rampage and Wrecking Crew, Skate or Die, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1. You know, to be able to, you'd be able to get 3 of these games for $10. That was such a bargain. And Back to the Future, I'm sure during one of my collecting days, I know I picked it up, you know, because I remembered what was written in that Jeff Rovin book. And I remember not really caring much for it in the late 90s. It was fine. It sat on my shelf for a while. And then in 2011, shortly after I got out of the Navy, I was married. I had 2 kids. You know, one was a newborn baby girl and a 2-year-old boy. And I had just got out of the Navy. We had just moved. And, you know, we were going through some pretty tough financial times. And I had to sell off a retro game collection, NES, SNES, Sega Genesis games that I'd been building for years. And it pained me to do so, but it had to be done. It was the right choice. I found a very generous buyer who gave me a great price. And all I was left with was a bunch of mediocre games that my buyer had wanted nothing to do with. One of them, which was Back to the Future. So, you know, games like Pinball and Back to the Future, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, you know, I played them because they were all I really had. And I became kind of fond of this game, believe it or not. It was, you know, as I always say, mediocre games need love too, and this game is about as close to mediocre as it gets. So I do have fond memories of this game. I did, by the way, buy back my entire collection, with the exception of a few cartridges, which I'll never get because now they're just ridiculously expensive. Like, I remember I got DuckTales 2 cheap, had to sell it. Rescue Rangers 2, got that. That was part of my original collection, bought cheap, had to sell it. And those games have just exploded in price. I even had Color a Dinosaur, again, bought extremely cheap. But, you know, now the price is unreal, and it's not even really a game. So anyway, without further ado, let's get to Back to the Future. Alright, and kind of goes without saying, the bee is probably the most obnoxious enemy. Now, I have seen speed runs of this game, or, you know, just persons who are really good at it, and the part that they get good at is they get the, you want to get the bowling ball, so you actually have a weapon, but they get the skateboard so that they can make it to the end of the block as quickly as possible. If I get the skateboard, I'll crash and burn and lose my bowling ball. I'm not very good at traveling with the skateboard and the controls, so I'll just focus on defeating enemies, picking up the blocks, and make it to the end of the block without falling. I don't believe you can jump over that park bench, by the way. It's kind of a red herring, or kind of a trap. Oh, and I forgot, you can pick up blocks just simply by shooting them. Bonus points for taking out the enemies. And it kind of goes without saying, I think the biggest problem people had with this game, other than the fact that it's a little too vanilla, is Back to the Future is such a popular film and license. They really could and should have done better. They expected more from something called Back to the Future. Right, and of course, the music. The music for this game, absolutely dreadful. Oh, the hula hoop girl started shooting at me. Alright. jumping sound effect is a little on the silly side as well. So if you want to be a pro at this game, I believe it is imperative that you master the skateboard. People also, of course, hate the way Marty looks in this game. The black hair and black tank top. One more block, then we're at Lou's Diner. Oh, it doesn't really give me credit if I shoot it. But that clock counter on the bottom of the screen. And I am aware of a redacted version of this game, or I can't remember what it's called, but refurbished, when they fix it up, clean up the flaws or whatever. There is a version of the, I mean, it's like a ROM hack or whatever, where they made Marty look more like how he's supposed to. Alright, so here we go with the crappy version of Tapper. Like, see what I mean? And they're gonna come faster. So I think you just kind of want to just keep throwing them and maybe get a little lucky. But yes, this is what crappy Tapper looks like. Oops. I think I'm supposed to get a super milkshake. There she is. Whoops. Yep, that sucks. So now you have to repeat the last stage. I accidentally hit the the girl with the milkshake. I think you have to get 50 of them in order to move on to the next block. Admittedly, that is a crummy minigame. Oh shoot, I gotta get my bowling ball back. Sounds like I got an extra life. Don't know how I hit the B. And this may come as a surprise, but I have probably not played this game in probably since I started getting my retro game collection back. I think once, I can't remember what the first game I bought back was. Whatever it was though, I'm sure Back to the Future popped right out of my NES. And it might have been Turtles in Time. That might have been the first one I bought back for my SNES. Alright, back to the crappy Tapper. Oh, I had the super milkshake. That was stupid. Okay, I'm getting a little bit better at lining them up. There's my super milkshake. Whoops. Used it too early. Okay, so now we can move on to the next stage. We got 51, one more than we needed. That means more of the terrible music. The bonus stages are at least a welcome break from the music loop. I notice I haven't... Oh, and this one's ugly. Look at that. It looks like a Game Boy monochrome nightmare. But notice I haven't talked much about the Back to the Future films. What is there to say? They are beloved. I believe that is like the one film series that is not going to get a reboot or a prequel or anything like that. Something else that is ever... Also... Oh, I have my bowling ball still. Ugh, and I lost it. Something else that's never going to get a reboot, by the way, is E.T. Spielberg, so very fond of E.T., will not let anyone touch E.T. It might happen maybe after he dies. I'm really struggling with this part. But as far as I know, no one's going to touch E.T. or Back to the Future. Oh, I ran out of time. So we start all the way at the beginning. Ugh. And I'll tell you what, if you are a fan of the actors of Back to the Future, everyone always talks, I mean, obviously Michael J. Fox was fantastic. Here's a film that Tom Wilson is in, you know, famously played all the incarnations of Biff Tannen. Biff, Griff, Mad Dog. He was in a made-for-TV film in the mid-90s called Andersonville, which was about Union soldiers that were imprisoned in a POW camp, very brutal conditions. He didn't have a big part in it, but he was in it, and it was a fantastic film. Andersonville, highly, highly recommended. The whole version of the whole film is on YouTube. Whomever uploaded it, thank you very much. Highly recommend you check it out. It is tempting to grab that skateboard, but even though the game is slower without it, I am much more comfortable playing this way. be a good benchmark, maybe 50,000 points. And as you can see, this, as repetitive as it is, it's not a very long game. So, with just a little bit of practice, I could probably get good enough to beat it. And this does bring up an interesting, I'm surprised it's taken me this long to come around and discuss it, but did anyone play Back to the Future Part 2 and 3 on NES? I actually played that one during the NES heyday, and I remember not understanding it, not liking it. I remember I rented it, or excuse me, yeah, I rented it, and I did pick it up during my collecting days, and was just as baffled then as I was when I rented it. She got me. Right at the end of the block, too. Mike Matei has gone on record to say that he considers that to be maybe the all-time worst NES game, because it was meant to be and I agree with his philosophy on this. It was meant to be playable. It was meant to be a game. It did have a development team and quality control and everything. It's not like it was an unlicensed game with only a handful of programmers trying to rig something together. No, this was meant to be a game, and it's just so overly complicated and ridiculous. In fact, I recall during the early days of the internet, I was still curious about it and looked up, when game facts were becoming a thing, FAQ, frequently asked questions, basically game guides, gamefacts.com. I remember going on to GameFAQs and, being surprised that so many people had written, very thorough, in-depth reviews for games like Back to the Future, Friday the 13th, Super Mario Brothers 3. But then Back to the Future Part 2 and 3, that game only had... Okay, this is a minigame I suck at, by the way. She got me. I think she got me. Those messages are so dumb. But yeah, I went to, I remember seeing on GameFAQs.com, there was only one game fact for Back to the Future, and the person that wrote it, it was overly long. The person that wrote it said, it's still online, by the way. It's still live. They said that it was, they spent like a whole summer trying to decipher how to play the game. I'm probably gonna lose a life here. Look how fast that timer goes down. Yikes. I think more than 3 spills, and more than a couple spills, and you ain't gonna make it. I guess that's why you need the skateboard. Oh, we're just gonna make it. Yeah, it looks like one more spill and I wouldn't have made it. 4 of those mini-seconds left on the clock. Now, I am recording this game on Mother's Day, so I guess it does kind of make sense. Yeah, this is the one I'm worst at. Alright, we'll give it one more shot, and then, by the way, did you notice it had Einstein's theory of relativity on the background? Are they really teaching that in high school in 1955? But we'll give it one more shot, and then after that, we'll wrap it up. Because I'm sure by now, even the most patient of viewers cannot stand this music loop. But admittedly, I am having quite a bit of fun. It's not a terrible game. This is one of those games that gets a really bad rap. There are worse games out there. This game is playable. You know, and I remember enjoying it when it was all I had. And that's why this game will always kind of have a fond place in my heart. Maybe in the later stages, you have to get the skateboard to make it to the end of the block in time. Alright, last try to get Lorraine. Yeah, didn't get it. This one sucks. It does look like you can block two of the little alleys, 2 lanes, whatever you want to call it. So basically I can get halfway through the game on no practice. I'm happy with that. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. And I'm on a bit of a Spielberg kick of my own. I still mean to record some Jurassic Park. And by the way, now that I've got the Kevtris fired up, I had a technical bug last year that kind of kept me from doing games on my Kevtris. We'll do some more NES cartridge games. Like I've got one. I've been sitting on it forever, and I've been wanting to do it for literally like 2 years now, and I keep pushing it off. But we'll get to it. I promise. All right, but thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you again real soon.